It began with a comment no one expected, delivered by a man who rarely wastes breath on polite diplomacy. Juan Pablo Montoya, never afraid to slice through the politics of Formula One, has stepped forward with a message so direct, so surgically precise, that it has forced every analyst, every fan, and most importantly, everyone inside Ferrari to stop pretending everything is fine. His words didn't echo, they detonated, and the shockwave rolled straight toward Lewis Hamilton, a driver who arrived in Maranello carrying the weight of expectation and the promise of a rebirth, only to find himself wrestling with forces far more chaotic than he ever anticipated. What makes Montoya's intervention so disruptive is not just the tone, it's the timing. Ferrari are in the middle of a season defined by tension, public criticism from leadership, a car that seems to lose confidence the moment you start asking for performance, and a growing disconnect between the people in red and the two drivers who are supposed to bring them back to greatness. Hamilton's frustration has been building in subtle gestures and clipped radio messages. Charles Leclerc's body language has said even more. And then came that infamous remark from President John Elkann, telling both drivers to speak less at the exact moment when unity and open communication were desperately needed. Montoya didn't just react to these events. He connected them. He laid out the pattern with a clarity that left the entire paddock temporarily speechless. According to him, the issue is not Hamilton's age, hunger, or performance level. It's the structure around him. Montoya argues that Ferrari have not yet figured out how to give Hamilton the support system, the responsiveness, and the technical coherence that allowed him to thrive for more than a decade. In his words, Hamilton isn't slowing down. He's being slowed down. What shocked people most was the simplicity of Montoya's argument. With the right foundation, Hamilton becomes a force of nature again. Not a nostalgic version of his old self, not a fading legend, a present-day contender capable of dominating a championship. But Montoya warned that can only happen if Ferrari stops second-guessing him and start aligning behind the driver they worked so hard to sign. His comments directly contradict the storyline that has quietly been growing inside Italian media circles, one that suggests Hamilton's adaptation has been the central issue. Montoya flipped that narrative on its head. In his view, the real problem is systemic. A leadership structure that sends mixed messages, a development direction that lacks clarity, and an internal environment where constructive feedback is sometimes mistaken for personal criticism. This is why Montoya's message hit like a hammer. It wasn't an attack, it was a challenge, not to Hamilton, but to Ferrari's leadership. He essentially asked one question: are they truly prepared to build around a 7-time world champion? Or did they expect him to fix everything on his own? To understand the full impact of what Montoya said and why this moment could redefine Hamilton's entire future in red, let's take a closer look at the deeper cracks he exposed. From the outside, Ferrari often appears powerful, iconic, almost mythical, a team built on legacy, passion, and a belief that talent alone can resurrect old glory. But inside Maranello, the reality is far more fragile. And Montoya's words pierced straight into that fragile core. The aftermath of the Brazilian Grand Prix revealed just how thin the margins have become for this team. What should have been a setback became a collapse, and what should have been an internal reset turned into a roster of public missteps that exposed deeper problems the team has been trying to contain for months. When Lewis Hamilton described his Ferrari season as a nightmare, it wasn't an exaggeration tossed out in frustration. It was the kind of comment that slips out only when a driver feels cornered by issues that keep repeating themselves, each one prevented from being resolved by the next crisis appearing too quickly. And instead of steadying the ship, Ferrari's president stepped forward with remarks that sounded less like leadership and more like an instruction manual for silence. Montoya heard that message, and he didn't let it pass. What Montoya said next is what shook the paddock. His argument wasn't wrapped in sympathy, it was built on observation. Hamilton, he said, is not giving up. He is not half committed. He's not detached. He's doing the opposite, sending notes to engineers, asking questions, pushing for adjustments, reviewing data into the late hours, doing everything a champion does when the machinery underneath him is inconsistent. Montoya believes Hamilton is working harder right now than Ferrari realize. And the disconnect, that's survival mode driving, not championship mode driving. And Montoya argues that Hamilton, who built his legacy on controlled aggression and relentless confidence, cannot perform at his best inside a machine that punishes instinct. This is where Montoya's assessment begins to expose something deeper. Ferrari's leadership vacuum, the tension between President John Elkann and team principal Fred Vasseur, has quietly influenced everything from communication style to development direction. Elkan wants urgency. Vasseur wants patience. Hamilton is caught between these competing philosophies, expected to deliver results while managing fallout from mixed messaging coming from above. Montoya believes the clash between urgency and stability is creating an atmosphere where progress stalls before it even begins. Nowhere was this tension clearer than in Elkan's talk less remark. To the outside world, it sounded like a firm message after a tough weekend, but to Montoya, and to anyone who has ever watched Hamilton's career closely, it struck at the core of how Hamilton operates. He has always shared openly with his team. He has always communicated through detail, emotion, and transparency. Closing that channel interrupts one of the essential mechanisms that allowed him to win 7 world titles. Montoya called the timing catastrophic, not because the message was harsh, but because it was strategically tone-deaf. Hamilton's quiet response, however, revealed exactly why Montoya continues to believe he is not the problem. His statement, "I back my team, I back myself, I will not give up," wasn't passive. It was disciplined. The kind of disciplined champions summon when they refuse to be dragged into internal politics. Montoya pointed to this moment as proof that Hamilton is still leading, even when the environment around him feels unstable.